And now people are starting to talk about how their credit cards are blowing up. So I'm here to kind of talk a little bit about how they're blowing up, why they're blowing up, and what we can do about it. Darrell,
Hey, hey, hey.
how are you?
I'm hanging in there, man. I'm doing okay. How are you doing, man?
Good.
Good, good. All right.
So
Yeah. So I'm already recording. We can go ahead and get this baby on started. All right. Where are you located, firstly?
I am in Orange County, California.
All right. Yeah, I'm Indianapolis, Indiana native, so about three
That's
hours
neat.
apart. Yeah, yeah, about 3 hours apart. So okay. So you got the floor. Go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Bill Mitchell. I'm a lawyer and an author. And starting about 20 years ago, I developed an expertise in debt relief services. And this issue, as you know, Darrell, affordability for Americans has become a big issue.
Mhm.
Obviously, it starts with housing costs, how expensive that is. And then they talk about how expensive gasoline it is. And now people are starting to talk about how their credit cards are blowing up. So I'm here to kind of talk a little bit about how they're blowing up, why they're blowing up, and what we can do about it.
All right. So with that, the biggest question that a lot of people would really ask is why is that happening? Why is everything going up? Why is everything so expensive? What can you do about it?
Well, let's start with why it's going up.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, there has been over the last 30, 40 years, really starting in the 80s, an explosive growth in the use of credit cards. And let me just give you a quick couple numbers to show you how much credit card usage has grown. In 1980, there was about 100 billion dollars of credit card debt incurred. By 2000, it was 600 billion. That's a pretty big jump. And then now it's at 1.25 trillion. So that's a 12 times growth in roughly half my lifetime. So,
Mm-hmm.
and now they also, as you know, they've made it easier to use. They everywhere you go, it's so easy to just take that little card out and tap it, stick it, wave it, show it. It makes it easier than handling cash and getting change back. And then the other thing they do is they encourage you. Darrell, I don't know if you watch TV, but you can't go 10 minutes on the television without some celebrity telling you how great it is to use a credit card. I mean, right? Whether it's Jennifer Gardner or Samuel L. Jackson, they're hyping that.
That's right. Yes. Yes, they are. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy on how. Yeah, I've noticed that most credit cards like interest rates going up and all of that stuff, and it's really it's really like a stressful time for a lot of people.
It's very stressful.
Yeah, and like the biggest question is like, what's the emotional side of debt that people rarely get to discuss? Like in that in that range.
Yeah. And let me just tell you, just so people don't feel that it's just their imagination that credit card has become a bigger burden.
Mm-hmm.
Interest rates on credit card in 2022 was 14.5%.
Mm-hmm.
It's now 21%. So it's gone up 33% in just 3 years. That's a huge jump.
It is.
The average amount of credit card debt each American is carrying is about up $1,000 every month across the board. More people are using their credit card their credit availability more than ever before. So you have the highest amount of debt, the highest amount of average credit card debt, and the highest amount of what we call credit utilization that we've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got somebody listening. It's not their imagination that has gotten worse. It has gotten worse. It has gotten more expensive, and the banks aren't helping. You know, they charge late fees, $32 a pop. Darrell, last year the banks made about 15, $16 billion in late fees.
Ooh. Ooh. That's
Talk
some heart
about
attack numbers right
money.
there.
You
Ooh.
know, so there, and you probably at any given time, there's about a 30 million Americans that are under the debt gun, under the credit card debt gun.
Mm-hmm.
And each year, about 5.5 million Americans either get sued by their credit card company or have to file bankruptcy because they've been buried in debt. So it's a lot of cats and jammers that are getting hit with this. So the first thing you want to tell everybody is they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
This is a common problem. The banks have gotten greedy. They're squeezing you. It just isn't that you made a mistake.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Like you talked about that. You put out some pretty disheartening numbers, and it's straight it's straight up true too. And it's been like it could be like an embarrassment at the same time. You say greedy, but it also could be embarrassing because of how greedy
It's
people can
right.
be. And it's,
Right.
it's like a lot of people feel shamed about that. And
Absolutely.
and that's the thing, like the shame. How much of shame is attached to like the financial struggle of debt?
No, there's a lot of shame. And that's why I try to emphasize that there's a lot of people in the same situation
Mm-hmm.
and to emphasize that there's a system that's designed to get you behind the eight ball, to bury you in debt. And let
Mm-hmm.
me just give you one other little example. It's
Mm-hmm.
not meant to make you feel good, but it's make you understand that it's designed to put you in a cycle of debt. It's that
Mm-hmm.
minimum monthly payment. When you get that credit card statement, and everybody who's listening can go back, pull after we're done, and pull out that credit card statement and look at it. It'll give you a number to say, here's your minimum monthly payment. And that makes you think that if you just are making that payment, that you're playing the game correctly, that you're doing it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
But in point of fact, that minimum monthly payment usually represents about 4% of the total outstanding balance on your credit card debt. And then the first part of that payment goes to pay off interest accrued that month.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a minimum monthly payment of $300, probably half that money goes to interest and only half of that's going to principal. So you're not whittling down that debt. And over time, if you're only making the minimum monthly payment, not only you will likely never get out of debt, that debt is incrementally going to grow every month. So hopefully by hearing this and understanding how that works, you understand two things. One, don't be ashamed of your situation
Mm-hmm.
because they're
Exactly.
trying to put you in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And two, you can get control of it by simply paying more than the minimum monthly payment.
Yeah, and that wow. Yeah, that's a big thing right there. That's pretty serious. And so the whole debt ordeal, we're talking about, the number crunching that you did. You read off some you know, pretty hard numbers to the fact that, you know, Americans can be feel ashamed. They could be a little, you know, little off on a, mentally, and how they can, operate on a day-to-day basis. And I think you also read off a number based off of bankruptcy, and um it was something else too, and I couldn't remember what it was. But based off of bankruptcy, do you have an actual, like, not an actual, but like a number off the top of your head that Americans do actually like file for bankruptcy based because of these type of debts?
About a half a million a year will
Wow.
file bankruptcy. And about another, think about this, Darrell,
Mm-hmm.
5 million Americans will get sued for credit card debt. That means B of A suing people, Chase is suing people, Discover is suing people, Citibank is suing people, Wells Fargo is suing people. So we know every year that anywhere from 5.5 to 6 million people end up in the soup because of credit card debt. So it is disheartening, but it
Yeah.
should be a warning to people who are on the edge to do one of two things. If you've got the ability to right the ship to make a little more payment, do it. But if you're buried, don't wait. Don't let shame uh, freeze you from taking steps. As you
Mm-hmm.
know, when you feel bad about yourself, it precludes you taking action. But when you've got a debt issue and they're charging you interest for not taking action, the sooner you take action and figure out, hey, how do I solve this problem? The better off you're going to be and get out of the shame and get onto the road of relief.
And that's interesting because of how, you know, people actually do feel like that they have to get, credit cards because of, you know, they're probably financially short, one week, and they need something to actually cover something. And so they rely on credit cards to actually make up for it. But then that bill comes, that's when, everything changes. That's when it's like you're freaking out. You don't know what to do. And it eventually piles up because they just put it to the side and just, kind of just leave it in the back burner. And that could be a big problem. That could be a big problem. So, would you say, for me, I would say this, it's like avoid getting a credit card as much as you can, just like avoid it. What do you think are the alternatives that you could actually do other than not get a
Well,
credit card?
I want to really highlight you made a really important point
Mm-hmm.
of how most people get into a credit card problem. They
Mm-hmm.
have some credit card debt, they're managing it, but then a life event happens, some unexpected expense. Could be car repair, house repair, death in the family,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. Or maybe you lose some income. Maybe you were relying on overtime at your job and you lost that overtime. Maybe you switched job and you're making a little less money. Whatever it is, all of a sudden you've got a delta, a change in how much you made or a temporary increase in your expenses. And in our current situation, people do use their credit card as if it's an emergency fund. They put that one-time expense on the credit card. They put that shortfall on the credit card, and what does it do? It balloons that credit card debt. And if you get back to what I was talking about, now they charge interest on that extra amount. Now all of a sudden you went from something that wasn't fun to something that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So to the person who's not there yet, hopefully what we're talking about gets them mindful to slowly work their way out of credit card debt, either by not using the credit card, making the extra payment, Or if you are in that cycle of I can only make my minimum monthly payments, or I'm struggling in my monthly payments, is you've
Mm-hmm.
got to come up with a plan to say, how do I get out of debt? I recently wrote a book called Say Goodbye to Credit Card Debt. You
Mm-hmm.
can access it for free on my website, Legal Edge Debt Solutions, and that'll explain kind of the history of how you get into debt, but it also lays out the four options that if you get into that cycle of debt, here are your four options: a loan consolidation, debt settlement, credit counseling, bankruptcy, and figure out which option works best for you. Because again, like you were saying, Darrell, what you don't want to do is let shame paralyze you from taking action.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. And you just mentioned literally a second ago, you said you had published a book, right? Is this the book?
Correct.
I had read an email, I think it was from Melanie. She had mentioned that you was publishing a book soon. Is this the same book that you're talking about?
Yep.
When did it get
Yep.
published?
Just no, about 2 months ago.
Oh, okay. Well, congratulations to you on that.
Yeah.
That
Well, thank you.
yeah.
I wish I could tell you it was fun, but it wasn't. But I'm glad it's over. But it's a great resource,
Mm-hmm.
and because it's a resource, I'd make it available. You can buy it on Amazon, knock
Mm-hmm.
yourself out, or you can go to my website,
Mm-hmm.
Legal Edge Debt Solutions, and download it for free. Take your pick.
Oh wow. Oh yeah. A lot of people yeah, a lot of people take advantage of that. So yeah, that's absolutely right. So yeah, like
Yeah.
I know, like, publishing a book, like you said, it's not easy. It could be difficult, and the stress levels of it and the complications. I know you could probably dealing with delays and all that stuff. So it's like, what is it that you learned through that process of actually writing that book to try to help other people with debt solutions?
It's a lot of it was understanding how we moved to a society and a culture that we use the credit card so much,
Mm-hmm.
and how the banks are able to charge so much interest.
Mm-hmm.
And because it didn't used to be that way, as I was just
Right.
telling you, in 1980 there was only 100 to 100 billion in credit card debt, and the first Amex card was in the early 60s. The first credit card was the Diners Club card, so you could go out to dinner and not need cash. That was in the late 50s. you
Yeah.
know um, MasterCard and Visa were early 70s. So this isn't something we've had all around. It's incrementally grown and grown and grown.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, they've kind of done two things really well: to convince us to spend more than we have, and then to make it easy to do it.
Yeah.
And we're all victims, every one of us, of that convenience. There's no but there's no, and so it acquires an awareness about what's going on and the harmful effects on your life to kind of manage that better. And then again, if you get buried, don't wait, don't hesitate, get information and push the right button for you to get out of debt. And that's partly why I wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
Researching how we got there was, once I got into it, I realized, well, I better learn this part in
Yeah.
order to explain how you get out. My whole
Mm-hmm.
focus was literally like, what's the options for you? Which ones work best? How do you get out? But I had to learn the first part. So that was the interesting part.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
and you really realize the banks game the system. I knew they weren't on our side, but I didn't realize
Right.
how bad it was. So
Well, I'm gonna tell you how they can also get people too, and I want your thoughts on this too. You can see all these banks and whoever else they have credit cards. They always tempt you into these rewards. cash backs, right? Give me your
Amen. That's
thoughts on
right.
that. Give me your thoughts, man. What's going through your head?
It, they're baiting the trap. It's baiting the trap. That is what it is.
Mhm.
Don't think of it as anything other than putting the chocolate bar out to get you to come out and grab the chocolate bar, and then the trap comes down on you. It is just baiting the trap. And people get all wound up about my rewards, and that it's just getting you to spend more. There's nothing else going on. They're not doing it because they like you.
Yep, they're just doing it to suck you into their money, and that's how
That's
most people
right.
fall to the trap. That's how they do
That's
it.
right.
They got me
Yeah.
too. So it's like, yeah,
Okay. Well, good.
yeah, oh yeah, they get me too. So I haven't had a credit card in so long. It's been probably almost, oh God, I want to say maybe almost 10 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long while. So I would rather struggle financially and just deal with it and see if I can find ways to, make it right rather than
Right.
get a credit card and mess myself up even more. Because I had done things with the credit card that at the time I felt was necessary. But then now looking at it, it was like maybe I should have thought it out more. Maybe I should have planned better because there was the time that my brother's car had got broken into. So they
Right.
smashed the windows and the the windows wasn't so severely smashed until he opened up the door and shut it to slam it, and that's when the glass just shattered. And we didn't know who did it, why they did it, or anything like that. I said, you know what? This is an emergency. I'm getting the credit card. I'm buying all kinds of ring camera, doorbell cameras, type of security
Right.
cameras. And I did
Right.
that. And man, I'll never do that again. I'll never do that again. I'm like, yeah, let me plan a little bit better next time. And I actually ended up using my own money later down the road. I was like, I can't do this because that that everything adds up. It completely
It does
adds
add
up.
up.
It's like those interest fees are dang near like matching up to what you take home from your job. And it's like, what's the point? Like, you might as well than just, not have one at all. And I mean, that's just, how I feel about it. Like, some of these things, like doing all of that is just kind of like, in my opinion, just pointless. Like, we have to kind of start normalizing, just kind of pushing that away and just kind of be a little bit more smarter about how we gonna, you know, buy things, invest, or whatever that we choose to do. We just need to be a little bit more smarter about it. That's just how I feel about it. But
Yeah. And Darrell, you learned your lesson early, and all it took is one time for you for the bell to go off in your head, and you go, wait a second, this doesn't work. This isn't working for me. This isn't in my best interest. And you've got the discipline to do that. For me personally, I keep one card. I keep a low balance. I pay off. I always keep a small balance, and I'll just tell you why. The credit system is wants you to have some debt.
right.
So, with your, as you may know, your credit score, they want you to have a little debt because
Mhm.
they want you to be playing the game.
Right.
So I keep a little debt to let them know I'm playing their game, but
Mhm.
I manage it and don't let it. But I'm no different than you. Every now and then I'll notice there's a little creep up, and you gotta knock it down, or it's only going to get worse.
hmm Yep. And that's a good point too. Like, I would have never like even thought to like, just kind of keep a small, just keep it small enough to like you can be able to manage it. But see, at that time for me, I was big. I was just gonna go and just, be reckless with it and just get what I need and be done with it and
Right,
not
right,
look back at all. And see, that's how I thought. And like, sometimes playing the game can be, that level of how well you can be disciplined. And yes, you are showing that yes, being disciplined, just keeping it small, being manageable, it's how, you know, you can play their game, but you can also tell them at the same time, hey, I'm not stupid either. So y'all can try to convince me however you want, but I ain't gonna keep playing this game to try to for you to coax me into doing something. So yeah, that's a good point.
right,
I didn't think about that.
right,
That's a good
right,
point.
right.
So in that aspect, with the credit card debt and all those financial stresses, how does that affect mental health? How does that affect your mental health when it comes down to that?
Well, it creates worry and anxiety, and I'm,
Mhm.
you know, you may know a lot of times people who go through divorce already have a lot of stress, but
Mhm.
that stress becomes worse because you take one household and now create two households, and yet the income hasn't changed, and you've increased the housing expense. So that creates anxiety and stress double that was just going through the divorce. It makes you, if you're the man, you think you're the provider, and when you have financial worries, you feel like you're not doing your job. You're not, and if you're in a marriage and you're both working, and maybe one of the partners is making less or they lost their job, they have anxiety because they feel like they're not contributing to the family.
Right.
So it really a lot of times goes to a person's identity because the cause of the problem they may put it on themselves. That they, like you, I went out and spent this money and maybe it's something I should have. So it really is an enormous worry. I would say financial is right after health in terms of creating stress for people.
Yeah, that's true. And I want to ask you this also because you don't fall into their little games of how they actually want to manipulate people into getting, you know, into these big old debt. So I gotta ask you this: why do intelligent people fall into debt?
Well, Darrell, you're asking a more complicated question because, as you well know, intelligence doesn't always translate into good behavior.
That's true.
Because we both seen a lot of smart people do dumb things. Well, all you have to
Yeah.
do is
Yeah.
follow the news or the social media posts to see allegedly smart people doing dumb things.
Yeah.
And it is, and worse, a lot of times you convince yourself you're smart, and that convinces you to think that everything you're doing is smart, which is not another delusion. But people, I was raised in a family, educated people.
Mhm.
But when we sat down around the dinner table, we never talked about money. We talked about politics. We talked about what everybody was doing in their life. And then we also talked about sports. We
Absolutely.
never talked about business. We never talked about a banking account. We never talked about paying the bills. So, depending on how you were raised, you could be educated but not know anything about money. So, it really depends on your upbringing, the family influences, and there's a little bit of, and I think that's partly created, there isn't a lot of financial education. You can
Mhm.
go all the
Correct.
way through high school and they'll teach you about sex, they'll teach you about algebra, but they'll
Yes.
never tell you how to balance your checking account. You
Yes.
know, so
That's right.
I don't know why they think geometry and algebra and calculus are more important than balancing your checkbook, but apparently they do. So there just isn't a lot of emphasis on financial literacy and financial education. So it's easy to not know. It's easy to be educated. It's easy to be intelligent. It's easy to be successful and still not know a lot about money.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
You know,
But you said something that kind of caught my attention, and I got to ask you about it. You said that as a family, you at the dinner table, you talk about you know everything under the sun except money and business. Why is that? Is that like more of the quality family time, or was it just because of something that you know you was raised to upon to do?
I think it's raised because I know people in other cultures, you where they'll talk about that more. You go to
Right.
other countries, they'll talk about it more.
Mm,
I think somewhere along the line, it was decided that polite culture, you didn't talk about money, or you didn't
correct.
talk about money in front of the kids. And I think that was a mistake. Um, I will go into all, I tend to talk to my son about money and
Mm.
finances and that. And I have a sister who thinks it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
So but if you don't talk about it, you don't build a comfort level. You make it a boogeyman when it shouldn't be a boogeyman. We should all
Yeah.
know what everybody's spending, and when you have a
Mhm.
spending problem, you should be able to share that with your friends, but you don't. You usually
Sure.
hide it because, again, you said it. You're embarrassed or shame. But we need to have more conversations about these kinds of money issues because
Exactly.
you'd be surprised when I threw out a bunch of numbers at you, and all that should have done is realize that if you're with a group of friends, there's got to be one other person there that's got a real financial issue,
Hmm. That's right.
and they're not talking about it.
That's right. Because that's the funny thing. Because when I was a kid, like that was talking about money was very in a secretive mode. It was like lockdown. You don't need to know about my finances. You don't need to know about my money. Nothing of that sort. Like I can ask a question of, you know, anything related to the finance portion, the money portion, just to learn, not even to be nosy, just to understand how money works or to understand, at the time as a kid for me, how, paying bills work, how much is
Right,
this? How much is that? How much you spend a month on this or that? And the biggest answer I got all the time was none of your business. It's like what I do with my money is what I do with my money. It's not really your concern. But I'd be just trying to learn something, just trying to learn and understand how money usually works. And and you're absolutely right. We got to normalize talking about money. I have a 5-year old. When she asks me questions about, my finances or anything like that, I let it all flow. Like, because at some point she's gonna have to, understand about money. And schools, like you said, schools may not even teach her that. They're not even
right,
gonna get to that point. If they do, I'll be shocked. But at the same time, it's gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna tell you this, I'm gonna tell you that, because I think it's important because she has money saved up too and stuff like that. So it's a very important that we need to normalize these conversations, because if we don't normalize these conversations now for security reasons or whatever safety reasons, I can understand that. But this case here, we're talking about something completely different. We're talking about something completely
right,
different. And if we're going to keep letting banks and you know people with banks and credit cards manipulate us into something that we know that is not going to actually help us in the long run, because I already know people think, oh, getting these cash back rewards and getting back all of this stuff is really going to be bigger play for us. It's going to help us. And it's not. That's why we need to normalize these conversations, because they're not helping us. It's, you said it all. You've been saying it throughout this whole thing, you're talking about it. Look, this is not helping us. This is not going to help us at all. So that's that's why I feel like if we're going to talk about this, we need to, we need to put these into schools. We need to be mainly schools because schools are not going to teach everything about this.
Right.
And that could be very frustrating. Very.
Yeah. And and to your point, Darrell,
Yeah.
by normalizing these conversations, you're going to reduce the stress, the shame of financial issues.
Yes.
People are going to be more able to talk about it. They're not going to feel as bad about it.
Yes.
It's going to be more open, and it's going to make solving the problem easier. It's going to make it less likely people get into financial difficulty, and then easier for them to get out when they are. So, anyways, that's 100% right, Darrell.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I gotta ask you this also. What are the warning signs that show someone is becoming overwhelmed financially? I think that's important for some people to know.
That you can only make the minimum monthly payments.
Yes.
If you're only making the minimum monthly payments, you are falling behind. You are losing the game. You're not playing the game, you're losing it. You're playing their game, you're
Mm-hmm.
losing your game.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the first telltale sign. And the other simple reason is your credit card balance stable or is it going up every month? Because if it's creeping up, I don't care if it's $28 or $128. If it's every month going up, you're slowly burying yourself. So those would be the two red flags. And if you're struggling, I mean, if you can't make a monthly payment and you fall behind, you're 60, 90 days behind in a monthly minimum monthly payment, then you really have a problem. And I'm not just trying to pitch my book, but then you
No.
go to my website, Legal Edge Debt Solutions, look at the information there, download the book for free. There's a financial assessment, and in case you or your listeners, I'm not selling anything. You can download the book for free. You can take the assessment for free. There's it's because it's designed to get people information to figure out essentially, do they have a problem, and if so, what's the right solution.
There you go. And quick story because this is actually I thought was pretty smart in this case. I had a friend of mine. Excuse me. It was a friend of mine. We had just graduated high school, and actually, no, this was a few years after high school. My friend decided that he was going to go ahead and get a credit card, and I didn't know anything about it until one day I took him to I think it was either CVS or Walgreens. I can't remember which one it was. Took him there, and he went to the candy section, snacks candy section, and just got a couple of snacks. It was a candy bar, and I think some kind of chocolate bar. I think it was, and he used his credit card. And I looked at him and I said, "Dude, what you using your credit card for? You just couldn't pay cash from it?" It was like, "Yeah, I could have paid cash for it, but if it's only coming up like I think it came up to like $2 or $3 or something like that, maybe a little less than that." And he was like, if I use that, I could just actually build some kind of credit. I don't want to go crazy here, but I just want to be able just to build up some credit. I said, that's a good thought. I didn't think about that either. Because, like I said, like my story. I went wild. I went and
Right.
bought cameras and everything else. But he just went there just to get some candy to build credit. That was it. And when the bill came, he was able to put the maybe $2 then, maybe $3, and you know, it was done. And he did that I think it was every month he told me. And I was like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Dude, ain't that smart
Well,
though?
yeah, pretty smart.
I thought that was
That was a
pretty
good.
smart.
Yeah, I think so too. For a young guy too, that's pretty good.
Yes, yes. And he's about a year older than me, I think. I think he's about a year or two older than me. And I would
Yeah,
have never thought about that. I was like, that is smart, dude. That is smart.
yeah. Now, have you kept in touch with that your friend?
I have not uh actually no, it's been a while. I gotta reach back out to him, but it's been a while. Life is lively right now. So yeah, I'm gonna get a reach with him again, see what's going on with him. But yes, I thought that was smart.
It was smart.
Wow. I was impressed. I really was impressed.
Yeah,
So yeah, I had to tell that story because I thought that was like mind thinking, like, okay, you want to build your credit because you want to be able to get a house or you want to be able to get a car.
right.
And you want to be able to do that, but you don't want to go wild on actually doing. And actually, you really don't even want to get the stress behind it. You don't want to, be depressed from, all of these big debt that you're creating. You kept it small. You kept it small. And man, I thought that was incredible. I really thought it was.
Yeah,
And that's how, in the near future, maybe now, he can actually get himself a car, good credit. He could be able to do whatever he needs to do. And I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was brilliant. So I gotta ask you, how do people regain a sense of control?
take action.
Yes. Yes.
That it's that simple. When you're in that situation, you got to take action.
Mhm.
And the great thing about in our society today, you can get on the internet. You can whether it's Chat GPT or just a Google search.
Yeah.
How do I pay down my credit cards? What are my options? And it'll give you information. And
Mhm.
so and and let me make this one other point. A lot of times people get into debt and they're solicited by debt settlement companies. And let me just tell you a quick little red flag for maybe some of your listeners.
Sure.
Uh, just as you're talking about your friend buying the candy bar because it was going to
Yeah.
help his credit, the
Mhm.
reason it helps his credit is people track your credit history. They
Yes.
track your purchases. They track your amount of debt. They track the kind of
Mhm.
debt you have. They track if you open a new line of credit. So when
Mhm.
you buy something, they look at your credit history and decide that's your FICO score, and they decide whether they can lend to you, and if they're going to lend to you, whether how much interest they're going to charge you. Well, a lot of companies buy your credit data, and they buy credit data for people who are in debt, and then they send them loan offers. And you say, well, Bill, why would somebody buy debt on people who are in debt to give them a loan offer? And I'll tell you why. They want them to call about the loan offer so they could sell them debt settlement or another debt relief solution. They use the loan offer as kind of a bait and switch.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
yes.
I
You
thought
talk to
something
your
was fishy
video.
about that. Yeah. I did. Yes. I knew something was fishy about that because I know, like, when I got into the debt, I had noticed, like, when I bought the cameras and stuff like that, I had let it sit. And next thing I know, I was getting all kinds of emails from, loaning companies, even payday loan companies. And they were actually giving, me like different types of offers to actually, hey, you need this loan, we could take care of you and stuff like that. I never fell for it, but I just thought that was fishy. And you just put the exclamation point where you said bait and switch. I'm like, that don't make sense. I knew something was fishy about it. I knew something was fishy about it.
So if you're listening to this and you've gotten loan offers, that's another red flag that you're in trouble with your debt, because
Yes.
somebody's bought your credit data and they said this person has a debt issue, and we're going to get him on the phone and we're going to sell him something he didn't even wake up that morning even knowing about. But when he goes to sleep, he will have bought something he didn't even know about when he woke up in that morning. That's how it works. And so if you've got a debt issue, you figure out the solution that's best for you. Don't get sold a solution that's not right for you.
Correct. Correct. That is absolutely right. I did not even think about that. I'm glad you brought that up because I sure would have not thought about that. That would have been sitting in the back of my head, and I would have never even thought twice about it. It just would have been like, oh, okay, something's fishy about it. I'm
Right.
not even going to try to entertain it or anything. But
Right.
yes, you pinned it down, and yes, that don't make sense at all, dude. I agree
Well, that's
wholeheartedly.
good.
Wholeheartedly,
Darrell, can
100%.
is there any other questions I can answer for you?
Um, Let me just add one more before you get the floor. What's the first step someone should take today if they're overwhelmed by debt? Of course, just take action.
Again, take
Uh,
action, but take action by finding out what are the options. And there's only four of them. So it's not complicated.
yeah.
And let me just say this, there are only four options:
Mm-hmm.
bankruptcy, loan consolidation, credit counseling, debt settlement. There's only four options. Every one of them works. So you have to figure out which one works best for me, because they'll all work. Now,
Mm-hmm.
some of them you have to qualify. You have to qualify for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You have to
Yeah.
qualify for credit counseling. You have to qualify for a loan consolidation. But you have to figure out which one's going to work best for me in my financial situation, and then take action. And again, that's why I have the website Legal Edge Debt Solutions, and my book, Say Goodbye to Credit Card Debt. That will give you the information. And by the way, the great thing about my book is that it's got chapters. You don't have to read every darn chapter. You don't have
Yeah.
to. You can just say, I only need to read three of these things. Just tear the rest and throw it away. But you know, use it as a doorstop. But so you can find out what you need to know and ignore the rest.
Okay. Yeah, I think I touched up everything on that behalf. Was there something you wanted to say?
No, that's it. This has been a great conversation,
Oh
Darrell.
yeah, yeah, it has, man. And I appreciate you coming on. You really spilled out some wisdom that you know I really didn't have an answer to, but you really woke my brain up to
Good.
a lot of the things that you said. So yes, I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming on and having this conversation with me, man. Thank you so much.
Hey, I enjoyed it. Take care, man. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you take care, man. You do the same, man.
Okay.
All right now.
Thanks a lot.
No problem.